all for joining us at the first press conference of the University at Buffalo Coalition for Leading Ethically in Academic Research, or UB Clear. We are a group of SUNY faculty members, students, alumni, and community members who are deeply concerned about the founding of the UB Shale Resources and Society Institute, its undisclosed objectives and funding sources, the disregard for academic integrity and ethical research standards evidenced in its first publication, environmental impacts during Marcellus shale gas drilling, causes, impacts, and remedies, and the unacknowledged gas industry connections of 3 of the report's 4 authors. Attaching the University at Buffalo's name to this report has damaged the university's reputation for credible scholarship, and it raises questions about the legitimacy of using public university resources in support of corporate objectives. We are here today to kick off our statewide campaign demanding transparency and a return to responsible and ethical standards for all research bearing the UB name. This means full disclosure of all documents regarding the founding of the Institute, its funding, and any and all industry affiliations of its members. We also call on the UB administration to suspend further funding to and publications by the Institute until a truly independent investigation into its founding, funding, and objectives can be conducted. Joining me today are a number of my UB Clear colleagues, and starting things off, we would like to present the SRSI with a report card, and I believe they have not done very well this semester. As you can see, we have a lot of incompletes and Fs on there. Pretty big problems.
Comments issued by criteria to explain the failing.
Lots of red pen. And first off, we'd like to hear from our faculty representative, Steve Halpern. Steve is professor of political science at UB and also a member of UB Clear.
Woo!
Yeah,
The bad news, I'm going to read a speech. The good news is that it will take me 3 minutes. These are difficult times for public universities. Diminished financial support is taking a drastic toll. It has produced a frantic search for money. While understandable, that scramble for dollars can undermine the unique stature, legitimacy, and public trust universities enjoy. That public trust derives from this perception that universities are bastions of independence. The independent search for truth is the enterprise at the core of university life. It is the core value at stake in the controversy over UB's Shale Institute. Consistent with the value of independent, legitimate academic research is not undertaken to benefit any one interest. In conducting research, neither universities nor faculties should be beholden to outside interests, answerable to them, or dependent upon them. Even the appearance, I repeat, even the appearance of such dependence compromises a university's integrity. Independent research about the safety of fracking is a proper and important subject for scholarly inquiry. It can inform public debate, but it is imperative for universities to take the most vigorous measures, open to public scrutiny, to ensure that research priorities and results are not skewed to curry favor or future funding from outside interests. That imperative is especially compelling in the case of research on the safety of fracking. For in that case, powerful forces outside of the academy have a huge financial stake in the outcome of academic research. In pursuing their own private interests, those forces may be willing to provide or withhold significant funding to cash-strapped universities, depending, and here is the key, depending on whether they conclude that their interests will be served by the research that is conducted. is the concern at the heart of the controversy over UB's Shale Institute. How can UB dispel that concern? Very simply. It can be transparent. It should be. Transparency is a hallmark of the academic enterprise. UB can disclose for public accountability and should all of the documents bearing upon the founding, funding, hiring, and expenditures in connection with the Institute. The citizens of this state deserve no less.
Absolutely. Yes.
There may be, and I emphasize this, there may be perfectly good answers to the many questions raised about the Shale Institute. But the university has really refused and failed to address those questions. It can do so only at this juncture by the fullest disclosure of all documents bearing upon the formation and operation of the Institute. For the sake of the university for which we all have such an abiding regard and deep affection and connection, it must do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Next, we'll hear from David Kowalski, Professor Emeritus of Cancer Genetics at Roswell and of Cellular and Molecular Biology at UB. He runs the environmental blog Re-Energize Buffalo and is also a member of UB Clear.
Thank you, Leslie. John P. Martin, director of UB's New Shale Institute, is a co-author of their study released on May 15th of this year. A major mistake in that study was a failure to disclose the author's funding sources. Martin owns a consulting company that produces public relations reports for the oil and gas interests, and his co-authors have received past support from gas industry groups. Their industry ties raise obvious concerns about conflicts of interest. The absence of transparency on funding sources is intolerable in an academic setting. Earlier, Martin said of the new institute, "We are really trying to provide fact-based, objective information. We are guided by science." I don't think so. His institute study failed on all three counts: facts, objectivity, and science. The authors claimed incorrectly that the study was peer-reviewed, giving it an aura of scientific authenticity that it certainly did not deserve. I have peer-reviewed journal articles and grants. I know what peer review is in science. That claim in the UB press release helped attract media attention to the study's conclusions, which were flawed, resulting in misleading newspaper headlines. The peer-reviewed claim was later retracted by the university, but the damage in the press had already been done. And I'll mention, as part of the introduction to the Shale Institute, the university said that this information could go out to policymakers and inform them. So we have to be aware of that. Objectivity of this study. It was severely compromised in favor of the gas drilling industry. In fact, the author's conclusion that environmental violations were declining in Pennsylvania was not drawn from their data. Based on their data, and contrary to the report's claims, the rate of major environmental violations actually increased during the period studied. This and the fact that the study made no attempt to demonstrate a cause and effect relationship between state regulations and environmental violations invalidates the conclusion in the press release, which read, and I quote, "This study presents a compelling case that state oversight of oil and gas regulation has been effective," end quote. In contrast to the Institute's conclusion, an independent study of environmental violations in Pennsylvania concluded recently that gas drilling companies are either unable or unwilling to comply with basic environmental laws. Finally, The authors responsible for the Institute's studies are certainly not representative of UB's excellent research faculty. The university should protect its reputation and reevaluate sponsorship of the Shale Institute.
Thank you for those great words, Dave. Next, we're going to hear from Sarah Buckley, a UB alum and registered nurse, and also a member of UB Clear. Obviously, I graduated from University of Buffalo Nursing School 6 years ago. I learned about research here at UB. I learned about the importance of ethics and what it means to be peer-reviewed. I am here partly because of the affront that I feel that the UB Shale Resources Institute and its recent report are to those principles of ethics and academic integrity. This report card here really sums it up. From what I learned at UB, I would give the Shale Institute and the report F's, incompletes all around. But truly, it's not academic ethics that brings me here today. There was a far more pervading ethic that I began to learn about at UB Nursing School from the caring and professional faculty there, and that I continue to learn from the nurses in my family and the incredible nurses I work with. These nurses taught me an ethic of caring, fierce and persistently for the person right in front of you, the family member or patient that needs your help right now. A university that I respect and call my own. Being associated with a study that gives the appearance of promoting a practice that has potentially detrimental health effects is therefore extremely upsetting to me. There is so little science into the health effects of this practice, but the science we do know leaves us wondering how the chemicals used, the heavy metals and radioactive materials mobilized by, and the cancer-causing air pollution from the various processes involved in shale gas extraction, how this might affect us, how it might affect our most vulnerable patients, the very old and the very young. Or, as you can see, I hope, a vulnerable reproductive system where the health effects might not be seen for months or even years. Poor science, like this report, is a part of a greater threat to families. It's a threat to the patient right in front of us. I am asking the UB administration to heed all of UB Clear's demands for the suspension of the UB Institute of Shale Resources funding and activities, to uncover the truth around what happened with the report, and to answer to the community in a public hearing on this issue.
Yes!
Woo! Thank you, Sarah. This is an issue that affects us all. And next, I'd like to present Dave Bradley, a UB alum and also a concerned citizen.
Thank you. I'm a UB graduate. I've got 2 engineering degrees, but I think I can speak on behalf of all UB graduates in that a degree from UB is not an easy thing to accomplish. They slam you right from the get-go with a lot of hard work and academic rigor, and in return for getting our degree, one of the things that we expect is that degree to mean something. And what the UB Shale Institute has done is really slam the brand. It's really trashed the brand of a UB degree. That's supposed to be able to allow you to get a job based on somebody figuring that you know what you're talking about. And all this UB Shale Institute has done is basically produce some corporate PR, which you can even tell with the colored chapter headings in this report. And, you know, that's basically tarnished everybody's reputation. If you're trying to get a job or to get some work as a consultant and you say you have UB degrees, well, you know, what's that worth now? It's worth less. And they really have to apologize, and the UB administration should do steps to try and restore its integrity on this. This is an effort basically paid for by big money and especially oil and gas industries to basically try and dress up the dreadful safety record that they have and the horrible economics and basically the con artistry going along, which tries to produce shale gas at reasonable prices, but you cannot make a profit these days at the prices they're selling it for. And they're basically destroying billions of dollars of wealth this way, and yet they're trying to sell this. It's just ridiculous. And this report fails on so many levels, and for the UB administration to support this and spawn this and facilitate this in order to get a few pieces of silver is pretty pathetic. So we'd really like the UB administration to step up and show some integrity and understand that these guys failed big time and quit repeating the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. The lack of attention to scholarly ethics in this report certainly does damage the credibility of any research being done at this institution. And so that affects all of us who are either have a degree or are working on degrees or who teach here. And finally, I would like to turn the mic over to my colleague in the English PhD program, Adam Drury.
Student loan debt in the United States stands at over $1 trillion today. Tuition at the University at Buffalo is set to increase 30% over the next 5 years. Students here are therefore asking, and legitimately, along with their peers nationwide, a question whose answer should be simple. Is the value of a college degree worth its soaring cost? If we answer yes to this question, we expect to receive the greatest possible value for the degrees we pay for. And this means we must both know what our tuition money supports and have a say in the funding decisions that shape the opportunities available to us. Because they have failed to be fully transparent to the people of New York, and because they have not held themselves accountable to the students and to the faculty who educate them, the actions of SUNY, of the University at Buffalo and Dean Bruce Pittman, and of the Shale Resources and Society Institute directed by John Martin have fundamentally and irrevocably compromised the value of a degree from SUNY Buffalo.
That's not right.
They have also devalued the degree by trampling over the values of the degree. Values of academic integrity, scholarly ethics, open and honest inquiry, the principles of which are taught to us as soon as we enter the university, as the foundation for our studies in all fields. Students do not want to attend a university whose leaders demonstrate such callous disrespect for the values they are tasked to uphold. We are outraged by the frivolousness with which those values are repeatedly discarded because they challenge the prerogatives of corporate profiteering. And we are disgusted by the servility of our university leaders to that profiteering. We demand integrity. The Shale Resources in Society Institute stands as an emblem of this disrespect, frivolousness, and servility. The Institute is anathema to the integrity of our University at Buffalo. Students seek higher education because we recognize the importance of developing the knowledge and skills needed to confront the political, economic, cultural, and environmental crises prepared for us by our governments and corporations. How can we trust the University at Buffalo to provide us with the resources and guidance to do so when it itself refuses to lead the way ethically and responsibly? When it itself installs an institute that not only devalues the degree by refusing to be accountable to the community and by making a mockery of its core principles, but that does so for the purposes of selling academic legitimacy to a hydrofracking gas industry responsible for wreaking permanent and catastrophic damage to the natural and public resources of the state of New York. The SRSI betrays the mission statement of the University at Buffalo, along with its obligations to the community and the public good. The Institute has squandered our trust and the public's trust, and has shamelessly jeopardized the future of our environment. The Shale Resources and Society Institute is an embarrassment to the students of the University at Buffalo.
Thank you, Adam, and I think that about sums it up. I don't know if we could say it any better than that. So thank you all for coming, and look forward to further work from us in the future. We're going to keep going until we get this thing shut down.
Lovely.